So yes, after the tea break, we are going to start session 10. And in this session, we have three paper presenters. And this session, Dr. Debobani Biswas will chair this session. So I welcome Dr. Debobani Biswas to come on the dais. I request Samia Rosni, a PhD scholar of Vidyasagar University, to introduce the chairperson of the session.
Dr. Debobani Biswas is an assistant professor in the Department of English, the Neotia University, Kolkata. She has completed her PhD from Bharati in 2010 on the topic of multiculturalism and Lorraine Hansberry. Her area of interest includes African American drama, African American studies, critical race theory, multiculturalism, feminism, communism, intersectionality, and queer studies.
Thank you, ma'am. So to begin this session, this is the 10th session of this 2 days seminar, and I would like to call upon stage Ashin Chakraborty, who is going to paper as patterns and detriments of out-migration from Panskura, West Bengal, evidence from a primary survey.
Yeah, my name is Ashin Chakraborty. I have recently completed my master's in economics from Calcutta University, and I am currently working as a researcher at SABAR Institute with Mr. Sabir. So we have done a migration primary survey, probably the first of its kind in quality and in scale in Panskura. And I am going to present the results from that survey. Next slide, please. So about SABAR Institute, we are a very nascent stage public policy research institute based in Kidipur. We do advocacy using empirical evidence. We have witnessed a very lack of empirical evidence data-driven public policy, especially in Eastern India. There are a few public policy think tanks and research institutes in Delhi, in Northern India, and in Southern India, clustering in and around Bengal. But there are none of such kind in Eastern India. So our mission is to do empirical research and influence public policy using that empirical data. Next slide. So what was our motivation for the study? So my out migration from West Bengal is not a rare thing nowadays. There are probably no blocks, no panchayat samitis, no gram panchayats from where out migration has not happened in at least one household. So out migration is a living reality of West Bengal, and especially in the Muslim dominated districts of Malda and Murshidabad and Uttar Dinajpur are the biggest out migration sources of India. And I am quoting this from census 2011, and there are no large scale data sources for migration after that. So this invisibility, there are migrants are facing many vulnerabilities from COVID-19, from climate events, and from the recent language related and identity related violence on them. But we do not have any data on what are the factors pushing them, pulling them, what are their earnings, what are their advantages and disadvantages of migration. We have no data at all. And the data darkness, what we are calling it, that census data is inefficient. It happened in 2011 and we are sitting in 2025 and 2025 is ending. So for 15 years, we do not have any data for migration. Next slide. So now just look at the scale of out migration from West Bengal. Just get a glimpse. According to the 2001 census, 5.8 million people out migrated from West Bengal. That figure jumped to 7.8 million, that is 78 lakhs in 2011. But after that, there is total data darkness. But during the COVID, during the lockdown especially, migrants suddenly came into the limelight because they had to walk thousands of kilometers and they had to die on the road and train tracks. So our civil society, media, and the people with social capital gave some limelight to them. And the government created a portal called eShram portal. It is an online portal where the migrants can register themselves. It is a self-registration system. The migrants have to go and register themselves. And that data for 2023, we do not have any data, subsequent data. And it is from, I think, a Lok Sabha question answered by the Ministry of Labour. They say that 23 million people listed their source, that their home, 23 out migrants from all across India listed their home as West Bengal. So the jump is massive, and we can we can be sure that this is not the whole picture. 23 million people, the scale is much larger, because how many of the migrants have a working smartphone, and how many of them can actually fill a fairly complicated form for the e-shram portal, and how many have the time to actually do so. So the scale is much, much larger. So next slide. So what we did, we collaborated with Panskura Bonumali College to do a student-led survey. So we have probably a very diverse opinion, or a very critical opinion of national education policy 2020, and as we should. But that NEP has a clause where it says that the students of every UG course have to do an internship, a compulsory internship for, I think, 60 or 15 days and 60 hours. So we collaborated, and what we have seen from anecdotal evidence, of course, that mostly the internships are in like mobile repairing shops, in saloons, in tailoring shops, etc. Because there are no guidelines that what those internships should be. So what we did, we collaborated with the Panskura Bonumali College with various departments, Bengali, history, English, and others. And we recruited students, trained them on how to talk to people, how to do a survey, how to use complicated survey tools like Kobo Toolbox, and how to represent their findings in a qualitative manner, of course, but also in Kobo Toolbox for the quantitative part. And we have gained a massive sample of 7,552 migrant households. So just to give it a context, the NSS survey, the nationally represent national sample surveys for Kerala, a state of 3.5 crore people, have a survey sample size of 7.5 thousand. And we have done a migration related, very concentrated survey with the similar sample size for only a small town and its neighboring panchayat samitis of Panskura. So it is a very representative sample for that community. And survey location was the rural area that of near Panskura. 94% of the respondents are from that area, and that is that Panskura area has a very not very but similar fairly large Muslim population. I think 25% of Panskura is Muslim. And the sampling and enumeration was a non-probability sampling. Like we basically a convenience sampling. We told them because there are no villages, no gram panchayats where migration has not happened. So we just told the students, go to your village, find some households, and ask them about what are their problems and what are their facing. If the migrant is present, then ask the migrant. If the migrant is not present, ask the members of the household about their conditions and dependencies. So yeah, next slide. So what we did find, first of all, this is not a choice. It is quite significantly distress migration, migration for survival, because 62.87% of the respondents said they migrated for better employment. It is, and they could not find employment, like gainful employment in their local areas or in their state, so they had to migrate. So migration is not a choice, and it is a distress-driven migration. Next slide. And another important point, we have so many academics in here. What we are seeing in West Bengal's colleges is a significant drop in male student population. Female students are there. They are increasing in some parts of the state, but across educational levels, after I think class 8 in Madhyamik, in higher secondary, and in college admissions, we are seeing a massive drop in male students. So where are they going? From this survey, we can get a sense. We have that 60.23% of the migrants were students before migrating. They were not working as some farm laborer or construction workers. They just completed their 10th or 12th and migrated to for work to other states. And among the students, 51% of them were 10th or 12th standard students. So they were not even enrolling themselves in the college undergraduate courses. Next slide. So what we find as per the harassment and discrimination head. So when we did this study, the buzz of the Bangladeshi thing that people were what Adinda spoke about, that migrant workers across India, from southern India to Odisha to Gurgaon, were branded as Bangladeshis because they spoke in Bangla, and they were thrown out of India and harassed in many ways. But when we ask the migrant households and in some cases the migrants themselves, the biggest issue they faced was the workplace issues, the overtime, the discrimination by the employer, not as per identity or language, just the class-based discrimination, that working overtime, delayed payments, abusive owners, everything. Then came housing discrimination. No one, as a Muslim population in that sample was significantly high. Housing discrimination was a big part. 16% of the migrants reported housing discrimination as the biggest discrimination they face. And even the non-Muslim migrants reported the same, because I in the qualitative part of the survey we found that it happened because they ate non-veg. Even the Hindu Bengali migrants ate non-veg and they were discriminated against based on that. And language-based discrimination and identity-based discrimination came third at 14.09%. That is 14.09% of the migrants faced language-based harassment in the last year. So next slide. And the remittances. There is a narrative in West Bengal politics that the migrant, we have very skilled workers. So they are out migrating because they have a labor demand of very, like labor demand is represented by wage. So they are getting very large in wage increases. So they are migrating. It is not due to distress. They are just doing it for the to get to the next level of employment in the career ladder. But that is not the case, because if that happens, if you are migrating out of choice, out of just to get on the career ladder, you will spend the remittances because which you send back home to spend on discretionary items like going to a movie, buying some clothes, buying a car or a two-wheeler. Because if you are a very skilled worker, your basic needs are already met. You are going out of the state to get some more money. But that is not the case. Because when we ask the household, the migrant households, what they spend the remittance money on, 52.67 say household consumption. Household consumption means food, like the wood for the chula, to repair the house construction and repair was 25.77%. So these healthcare was 36% and children's education was 25%. So these basic things are being paid by the remittance money. So it is not a migration by choice. It is just to get the basic survival money. They have to migrate. So we have a very skilled worker and they have demand, so they are migrating. This narrative is not correct. Next slide. And so, what are the key conclusions for this from this study? We have a lot more data, but as we have very limited time, I have just presented a few more striking data points. So, one is distress and dropouts. Migration is distress driven in West Bengal. No one is going out, as we say in Bangla, শখের জন্য বাইরে যাচ্ছে না. They are migrating out of distress. It's an economic necessity, and it is directly linked to high educational dropout rates. Even a few days back, the UDICE survey came out which gives out some data points about the school education system across countries. And even then, we can see that dropout rates, the schools with only one student, and in schools where the student number is less than 10, West Bengal tops the country. It ranks one in all the indicators. So the dropout is significantly related to migration. They are migrating the male students. We used to talk about educating the children, but if you look at the educational institute data, the gender ratio, it used to be less than 1. That is, the number of girls were less than the boys. Now it is more than 1, 1.1, 1.2, which means the number of girls in educational institutes are more than the number of boys. But in our society, we know that the number of girl child is less. We have, I think, less than 950 girls for 1,000 boys. So where are they going? They are out migrating because of distress, because of lack of employment opportunities and high vulnerability. 19%, 15%, and 14%. And if we cross tab that, we will see a very like intersecting Venn diagrams where the Bengali Muslim migrant workers are facing workplace abuse, housing discrimination, and language-based discrimination. And there are no policies, there are no white papers to talk about it. And what we do call it is not a representative sample for the whole state. We need a representative sample led by the state of West Bengal to carry out a survey, which will talk about the things we talked about and probably a lot more things about across the whole state, because it is a statewide issue, and I think it is probably the biggest, most like it is the thing which binds all West Bengal villages across from Kartik to Darjeeling to Kalimpong, as we say, that every household has seen at least one person migrating out of their households in the last, I think, 10, 20 years. Next slide. So policy prescriptions, what we are aiming to do. We are a very small research institute with very resource constrained way of working. But even we managed to collect 7,000, 7,500 samples in a matter of months. If the state takes an initiative to carry out a survey like Kerala did, Kerala actually is an in-migration hub. People from across India go to Kerala. Keralites, Malayalis are not working as out migrants across the country, they are migrating out of the country. But even then, the Kerala government took initiative and carried out a Kerala migration survey in 2023. And from that, we can know a lot of things about the Bengali migrant workers because West Bengal doesn't have any data about it. So we are proposing to the West Bengal government that please carry out a West Bengal migration survey, which is a need of the hour. And it should include the comprehensive data that what are the push factors, what are pushing them out of their homes, and what are the pull factors, which are pulling them towards other states. The earnings, the remittances, the cost of migration, including the direct and indirect costs, not only the monetary cost of the migration, and the advantages and disadvantages of the households. And please enable evidence-based policies based on just vibes will not work for this. We need concrete data points to address this clear situation. Thank you. This is the last one.
Thank you, Ashin. That was a very nice presentation. We'll come to our discussions later. I now call upon Mohammed Ebadullahil Maruf, student of the Department of Economics, Gauhati University, to present his paper. His paper is titled Precarity and Confrontation Among Miya Muslims in Assam, tracing the Bengali-speaking origins and contemporary socio-economic vulnerabilities.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. There's a lot of category of Muslims, Goria, Moria, Kilundia, and Miya. Particularly, I'm going to talk about Miya Muslims and its contemporary situation in India and Assam. Particularly, where there's a lot of presentations about Miya Muslim, Bengali Muslim, their contribution and their migration, marginalization. There's a lot of paper here. But I want to specify the Miya Muslim in Assam. Just the overall of the contemporary situation. As we know, the BJP Sarkar and the initiative that's led by the government of Assam, the Chief Minister Ahamed is really against the Miya Muslims. We can know by his protestings, by his propaganda, and by his slogans, by his lecturing, and the open statement for the public. Whenever news come to the Himanta Biswa Sharma, the Chief Minister of Assam, he will directly say that I will not leave the Miya Muslim. He's targeting the Miya Muslim. Why? If we go back to the 19th century, where the C.H. Milon, the administrator at the British colonial period, he brought the Bangladeshi people, that's mean who migrated from the Bangladesh, and he also given a chance to come the people from the Bangladesh, and he also given a settlement in Assam in Brahmaputra Valley for the agriculture expansion. So let's go through topics, precarity and the confrontation among Miya Muslim in Assam, tracing the Bengali speaking origins and contemporary socio-economic vulnerabilities. So my name is Ebadullahil Maruf. I'm doing my graduation in Economics Department of Economics from Gauhati University, Assam, India. So we'll go through there is a table of content, introduction, the historical background of migration, socio-economic contribution and marginalization, contemporary identity and citizenship crisis, land displacement and social political exclusion. At the last, we'll discuss and the overall conclusions. Okay, who is Miya Muslim? Miya Muslim is who is a Miya Muslim in the context of Assam politics. Miya Muslim refer to Bengali speaking Muslim of West Bengal origin settled in East Bengal origin settled in Assam. The term Miya Muslim was originally neutral but has become politically and socially charged in the recent decades. We can say in Assam, there is a chief minister of this state are directly targeting Miya Muslim. Why? Okay. So Miya Muslim means to call someone respectfully in Bengali society. We can Miya as a respect, as we can say respected in Bengali society. Someone is a reputed person. We can say the Miya. As we can say Miya, we can say Miya sir, as like that. Okay. This one type of Muslim category living in land of the Assam. As we're saying, there is a Khilonjia and Moria. But also Miya term is used in the categorization of the Muslims in Assam. Next slide. Historical background of migrations. Migration began from the colonial East Bengal. Now the Bangladesh into the Assam during the British era for agriculture expansion. It's the most important things. Why they were migrated? Because of agriculture expansion. The British administrator C.H. Millan in 1931 encouraged migration to the increasing the cultivation and land revenue in Assam's fertile plains. They were settled in Brahmaputra Valley because this area are really fertile for agriculture. That's why as C.H. Milon in 1931 encouraged the people to come and to make the Assam economy in agriculture and make the fertile plain into a good production. The second major war, there is a three phase. First one in colonial period, second one in when we got independence in 1947. The second major wars occurred during the partition of India in 1947, when many Bengali Muslims crossed into the Assam from West Bengal, and you can also prefer in the Bengal partition in 1905. And the third phase followed the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, bringing the refugees and displaced families into the Assam. It's a very important things. Also, we can connect it to our topic in 1971. Is that we can say the people, those who come after the 1971, have to go back to their home. I mean, this is Bangladesh. There is a proclaim. There is a argumentation of our government at the societal progress, because those who come after 1971 have to back to their home. We have no any settlement, we have no establishment in our Assam. And the most settled is established themselves in the Brahmaputra Valley as well, saying the chart, that's a river rail areas under the government agricultural settlement schemes. Next slide. And you can see there is a stranger of mist, the trade or of peace from the India Northeast. The Sanjay Hazarika, he wrote this book, and he's saying, please next slide. He is saying about Miya Muslims. Okay, the Miya Muslims have lived in Assam for the decades, even generation, tilling the land and enriching its economy. Yet they remain stranger. The important things he mentioned in his book, they are still now a stranger. They behave like a stranger. They are not original Assamese. In the eyes of many people without a home in the land, they helped blind by the Sanjay Hazarika in 1994. Next slide. contemporary identity, you can say the NRC was implemented in Assam because to remove the illegal migrations, and also you can see in the Al Jazeera, the Indian implementation anti-Muslim 2029. It was about NRC citizenship law weeks before the election, and also the CA was implemented in 2019 because both are was to simplify and to search out the illegal migrant, those who come from the Bangladesh and also settle in Assam without any documents. But even those who have a documents, proper documents in from the 1970, from the 1951, they have a proper documents. They are also accused in this case. You are the illegal. You can't stay here. You have to leave. And there is some example, please. Next slide. You can see in 2013, the Assam has departed 166%, which of 147 were sent to the Bangladesh. And second recent drive, the Operation Sindur, that was in recent. In 2011, illegal Bangladeshi immigrants were pushed back. They were pushed back to their nations as per the report. Even say Himanta Biswas was saying is, but the Assam Chief Minister 330 plus people have been pushed back to the Bangladesh in 2025. Recent, you can see the Himanta Biswas was also claiming that. And in his statement, the OPES press conference, he says about the targeting the Miya Muslim, the Bengali, origin Bengali Muslims, about the targeting them. And they have no right in this Assam. They have to leave. And also, I think he's creating a Hindu-Muslim he is destroying the unity of among the Hindu Muslim and describe the peoples to a Hindutva politics. Next. There is also Assam's evictions. You have, I think, heard about the evictions. There is, I think, 17,600 families were evicted from the government land in the Assam over the past time. Even some of have the proper documentations. They have the legal documentation. They have the proper magistrate sign on their documents. They have their own property, but also have been evicted from their original land, because the problem was that humans when the bus declared claimed that they are illegal migrants and they have been here settlement without any documents, but some of them have proper documents. As the this was two phases of eviction. First was 17,600 when were evicted. After that, the latest evictions drives June 2025, around 5,300 families, mostly Bengali origin Muslims, were evicted from their land. There is a news you can play.
Shifting our focus to some breaking news now coming in. Bulldozer action against anti-terror activities in Assam. The madrasa have been sealed by the Assam government for alleged jihadi activities, and it is.
Again, we can see the video. There is a madrasa. The Himanta Biswas and the other politics. I can exactly know who is behind the main mastermind of this. They are saying it's a jihadi. There is a presenter who mentioned about the jihadi in Assam. They're saying they are structuring the students, the Muslim communities, especially the Bengali Muslim who are studying in this madrasa. They are saying they are it will be a cooperation and operation of the jihadi. That's why they are evicted and they have destroyed the madrasa. And also there is a video, please keep. You can see. As you saying, the Miya Muslims living mainly in Preven Chor, who are living in Chor, are frequently evicted in the name of anti-encroachment tribes and illegal migration. Thousands have been displaced by the problem of the erosion, losing both homes and livelihoods. As Hussaini and Colonial 2020, the broken landscape, refugees, resettlement, and royal in the northeast India. He has also mentioned they are not illegal migrants. They have been encouraged to come to Assam and settle to make the agricultural expansion. So we are going to the conclusions. The Miya Muslim of Bengali speaking agrarians migrants have been treated to the Assam's rural economy, especially in the cultivating the of the food plants. Despite the economic contribution, they face political explosions, land disposition, and associated anxieties instigated by the NRC and GAR, as we're talking about that. And Miya Muslims comforts also through the classical asceticism in Miya poetry and the human rights movements reclaiming the dignity and belongings. Their struggle mirror borders South Asian issues of migration identity and nationhood, testing the Indian's democratic promise of inclusivity and justice. So thank you all. Thank you for the listening. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for this wonderful paper. So we are going to wrap up temporarily for this session because our third participant is a little late. So these were two very interesting and we were talking about migration or people being forced out. Someone who has been there in their lands for such a long time is being forced out by various policies, by the government, after residing for so many years. And Ashin Chakraborty showed us that migrants, they are forced to leave their land because their land is not providing them something which they are expecting for, like livelihood, like education. So they are being forced out in a different way to migrate in various parts of India and to give them back, bring back the monetary need that would help them sustain in their own land. So these were very two interesting and papers where we were seeing being either migration or forced to leave your land. But at the end of the day, we are forced to leave the lands where we are. Okay, so with this we come to this session. Thank you, presenters, for this wonderful presentation. I welcome Shenaz Parween, Senior Research Fellow, Department of English, Sidho-Kanho-Birsha University, to present her paper. Her paper is titled From Colonial to Contemporary, Shifting Modes of Precarity in Bengali Muslim Bhadramahila Fiction.
Good afternoon to all the eminent dignitaries. I'm Shenaz Parween, a research scholar from the Department of English, Sidho-Kanho-Birsha University. And the paper I'm about to present today is entitled as From Colonial to Contemporary, Shifting Modes of Precarity in Bengali Muslim Bhadramahila Fiction. The notion of Butler's precarity becomes most pertinent for understanding the gendered as well as religious vulnerability of the Bengali Muslim Bhadramahilas, as scholars such as Sonia Nisar Amin and Mahua Sarkar have already highlighted the existing gaps in studying their overlooked and marginalized subjectivities. However, first I would like to clarify my use of the term Bhadramahila, which was coined by Ghulam Rashid and Meredith Borthwick. While it literally translates to respectable woman, in the context of Bengali Muslim Bhadramahila, it encompasses an additional religious, cultural, and linguistic identity to it. In this article, I have been using the term to refer to Muslim women from Bhadra or respectable families, extending beyond the colonial era to the present times. The article includes the term not in a fixed sense of national identity, but used in utter fluidity to describe any woman with similar religious, cultural, and linguistic affinities, not only limited to India or West Bengal, but also across national boundaries. Notably, there is a deliberate effort to select writers from three significant periods in Bengali Muslim history: the British colonial era from late 19th to early 20th century, the post-colonial era with the creation of East Pakistan from partition to 1971, and the modern era marked by the emergence of Bangladesh as a Bengali Muslim nation from 1971 to the present. Generally, the writers from elite Pardanashin families such as Begum Ruqayya, Mrs. M. Rahman, Nawab Faizunnisa, and Samsunohar Mahmood were the voices of women during the colonial era. Their realist writings were replete with the domestic and social precarities of the time, while attention is also given to other Nepathyacharinis who wrote in silence without public recognition. At one hand, it was the time of Nawab Faizunnisa Chaudhurani's Fairy Tale Roop Jalal, while on the other, Begum Ruqayya's utopian fantasy, Sultana's dreams promised a near impossible woman's world of peace and prosperity. While the former is a manifesto of Muslim women's sexual defiance, the later becomes a terrible revenge on man. Meanwhile, other writers like Masuda Khatun, often nicknamed as Mrs. M. Rahman, was noted for her articles like Amader Dabi, Kotha Bonam Kaj, Shanti O Shokti, and was described by Saugat as one concerned with protecting the rights of women at all times. Taking a departure from her contemporaries, Samsunahar Mahmood made religion her resort to reclaim female liberty. In the novel Purnamai or the Virtuous Women, she portrayed 8 virtuous women from Islamic theology, thus proving the exploitation of religious doctrines by patriarchy. However, the question lies in the fact that despite producing such a vast literary river, these women were never included in the studies of colonial Bengal. They either come under the subcategory of Bengali Muslim fiction or within the post-colonial paradigm of subaltern studies. Their precarious livings are often undervalued in the Hindu-dominated nationalist discourse in colonial India and its historiography. The routinely conflation of the terms like Hindu upper caste or middle class with Indian or Bengali have registered the complete exclusion of Bengali Muslim women who are often negated even from the status of middle class, a class that had a greater contribution in the field of nation building or formation. Not only they were being ignored, but even more astonishing was what Mohar Sarkar has pointed out, the failure to register Muslim women's invisibility as something that might need any explanation. Thus, it is not just ignorance, but a strategic ontological eraser as well as their disqualification from remembrance by the majority Hindu-dominated Bhadra Sampradaya. Hence, what Butler at once contended all life to be precarious, which he later modified as a politically induced condition in which certain populations suffer from failing social and economic networks of support and become differentially exposed to injury, violence, and death, resonates the condition of Bengali Muslim Bhadra especially during the time of colonialism. In fact, in addition to such politically induced precarity, these women were also excluded in the domain of their social sphere. It becomes evident in each of their writings whether the urge of female emancipation in Hussain Sultana's dream or a reversal of traditional gender roles in Faizul Nisa's Rup Jalal. In each of these works, they explore the exegesis of patriarchal exploitation on silent Muslim women who, following the words of Sonia Nisat Amin, were fed on such puritanical values. However, this apparent social precarity has a political reason behind it. While their target was always Muslim man, it again becomes important to find out what makes this Muslim man subjugate Muslim women. Upon examining historical accounts, it becomes evident that Muslim men on the period were frequently associated with notions of sexual zealotry or moral depravity, and they were subsequently excluded from the Bengali Muslim Bhadra Sampradaya. Years of negation as well as continuous suppression had inculcated an anti-Brahmo ideal in them. While the Bengali Orthodox was much influenced by the Brahmo Samaj's enlightened as well as Western ideal of female emancipation, the Muslim Orthodox, as part of revenge for their societal exclusion, took a revivalist turn towards the conservative ideals of their religion. Thus, historically, the Bengali Muslim Orthodox fragility or sense of precarity makes the Bengali Muslim Bhadramahil's existence precarious. So, Muslim women's confinement to Janana as well as their sexual exploitation is more a matter of political as well as social exclusion than a matter of religion. Another inquiry may also arise regarding the take of Hindu Bhadra Mahila on the precarity of Muslim Bhadra Mahilas. The severe lashing of Begum Ruqayyah's 1903 article on Mahila, a women's periodical entitled Alankar, or the badges of slavery was enough to indicate the irrelevance of implying that all women suffer the same oppression. Thus, the kind of precarity these women were talking about is definitely a complex outcome of many influences, including their critical appraisal of the kind of privilege and token of freedom that a new, more benevolent order of male dominance brokered or allowed in the lives of contemporary elite Hindu or Brahmo or Parsi women. Meanwhile, with the passing of time, these political upheavals led to a political shift in the Muslim Bhadramahila's writing. They adopted a political stance in their works, and during the 1971 liberation war of Bangladesh, women like Sufia Kamal, Sahin Akhtar, and Selina Hussain focused on the Virangana, that is, women who were raped during the war as the subject of their writings. At the advent of 1971 War of Independence, the earlier rhetoric of patriotism, which was celebrated with war mottos like Vipul Bishoy Prithvi, Joy 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 Gan Kaste Haturir, ended up with new moods of bodily precarity for these women. In the context of nation history, women were consciously incorporated to borrow Danish Candiotti's idea of the nation as a moment which is always in need of protection. However, their miseries remain unheard in literature, which included a homogenized, one-dimensional perspective of them as emotionally traumatized, psychologically disabled, and socially ostracized. In fact, the term Virangana itself, which was once used by Bangladesh's first Prime Minister, Mujibur Rahman, to acknowledge the sacrifice of women for the freedom of Bangladesh, ultimately ended up branding those women as fallen, the victims of rape, and an object of disrespect in the society. It becomes a restrictive privilege, or to quote like Faustina Priera, or to quote Sahin Akhtar, the level turned into a slur, losing its literal meaning. In fact, there were rarely few walks celebrating those Virangana sacrifices except Salina Hussein's Hangar Lodi granite, and none that goes beyond the gendered violence done on female bodies to wider moods of precarity rising from the guarantees of security as yard by such Mukti Jyoti. An excerpt from Nilima Ibrahim's Ami Virangana Bolchi, a war heroine I speak, Virangana বলেই কি পেট ভরে রাষ্ট্রের কাছ থেকে শুধু প্রতিশ্রুতি জীবনের নিশ্চয়তা কিছুই নেই may well be quoted to exhibit how the moods of precarious feminism serve to make a connection between the heightened gendered vulnerability of female bodies in public spaces and the hypocritical promises of security by the nation state in the process of nation building, though such attention is like quite restricted in the field of writing. Gradually, people's thirst for power took a fundamentalist turn, wherein women again were put on the verge of sexual precarity. Writers like Tahmina Anam in The Good Muslim explore the sexual precarity as well as vulnerability of women like Maya in their own country, while the later works started to take a global approach with the incident of 9/11 that made Muslim lives globally precarious. The approach to Muslim women's identity shifted in both global and local discourses, as the Bangladeshi-born British woman writer Monica Ali has vividly portrayed in her novel Precarity. Our protagonist Nazneen embodies the global precarity experienced by countless Muslim women in the wake of Islamophobic reactions following 9/11. In this context, precarity is intricately linked to the challenges of navigating identity, place, and belonging in a post 9/11 world. In conclusion, the narrative of precarity has transitioned from an emphasis on the inner space to an exploration of the outer space, encompassing the political landscape and economic sphere. However, it consistently remains the intersectional vulnerability as well as precarity of Bengali Muslim women who are rendered marginalized by their gender, class, and religious identity. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Is there any question for her?
My question is, a deconstruction of Virangana as like limited social privilege, but like there's a political and social need for Mujibur Rahman to say those things. But ultimately, I haven't come across any study from Bangladesh where there's data to show that there is exclusionary attitude towards children of young learners or the learners themselves. So I'm just trying to understand it from not from a literature point.
So I particularly studied it from a literature point of view. I don't know about the socio-political response of that case. But when I'm talking about literature, we can see that it literally ended up as a concept of a fallen women. Like in literature, we can take it from that perspective. And it is used in that perspective. Okay, so this is what
Tehinanam's Polo Beach and
the
sequel.
Yes.
This will be Longana, and we find that over there the characters are questioning, will we be accepted in society?
Yes. So this thing is always there in the field of literature. So the question is always there.
Yes. So I want to know especially the definition of Bhadramahila, especially on the context, because the Titi Bhattacharya's centering of culture, Bhadramahila is basically defined in terms of the upper caste, obviously Brahman caste and Buddha. So is it a moral category? Is it a caste-based category? Or you talked about was
So particularly when we are talking about Bengali literature, we are getting those writers who are writing in the mainstream. We don't know about the lower caste or the marginal ones, though they were Nepatya Charinis, as I mentioned, but they were so marginal. So particularly Bhadramahila, the term is used in the context of those ones who are coming in the mainstream, and particularly the upper caste women. Okay, because we can see that like Begum Rokaiya, they are like coming from that lineage, royal lineage, and they are getting.
define the term. Sorry, you define say the song.
Sir, I have came across like a book that is the Meredith Borthwick's book I've considered, and Ghulam Murshid is there. So yes, I have like observed him.
I have another question. Now, this concept of the Bengali Muslim Bhadramahila and Bengali Muslim Bhadramahila, we like within Calcutta, for example, Calcutta Alimony Letter Calcutta, Bengali Muslim is always seen as Protocol.
Yes.
And even from East Bengal, East Pakistan, or Bangladesh perspective, the established ruling class who was Bengali poets, they also never like gave respect to the mobile Bengali Muslim who rose up from the farm background, whatever. So this concept, like how do you situate this Bengali Muslim emergent?
So, there is always a kind of like paradox there. Though they are like the Bhadra we can take from the caste perspective, from mainstream writing perspective, but still they are going through that precarity. And they are trying to exhibit it in the field of literature. So I'm like analyzing it from that perspective. So that's.
Thank you. So you have portrayed the concepts of precarity through your paper in a very balanced way. That is what I saw, that you have been focusing on it in from various angles and portrayed it. Thank you for this nice paper. So with this, we come to the end of this session.